We have a great episode of Detonation coming up because it's Marlin Adams. He's an entertainment lawyer representing producers, writers, and directors in film, music, television, and theatre. He's acted and produced the counsel on numerous film and television projects and has negotiated a wide range of industry agreements, including finance, distribution, acquisition, and production contracts. Wow, it's an absolute privilege to have you on, Mr. Adams. And we're here primarily to talk about a great project, an inspiring feat of your life and part of your life and part of my life, the Ustp, the U.S. Transhumanist-Party. How did you get involved with the U.S. Transhumanist-Party? I mean, they're a bit wonky if you really think about it. I mean, what is transhumanism anyway? But give us your story. I mean, you can go back as far as you want. Are you a science fiction nerd? Are you like me? Did you consume lots of sci-fi novels when you were little?
Actually, no. I wasn't a big sci-fi nerd. How I got into transhumanism, man, was it's quite interesting, really. The leap to transhumanism, really, as this, I think the for me as an activist, it was like it's almost like the light at the end of the tunnels in some ways, not the end of the tunnel, but you see some light now, because you're in this thing and it's going on day to day, week to week, and nothing substantial changes, incremental things, and then when things do change, you really don't have that much control over the trajectory of that change. So, what's supposed to, on and on and on, this incrementalism, and the idea that we could leapfrog a lot of this stuff, through our own devices. That was just so appealing to me, the idea that, through our own genius, our own human genius, we've unlocked some of the keys to the architecture of our very existence. And through that, a lot of the stuff that we're fighting through and trying to accomplish on a social political level, we can just leapfrog more directly into those activities, and transhumanism is a part of that. And now let me just explain. For me, transhumanism, I'm more of I guess what they would call a technical transhumanist. I'm more of a practical transhumanist, I guess, in terms of the technology itself. The transform, the genetics, robotics, artificial intelligence, nanoprocesses, the confluence thereof, that stuff is what fascinates me, because therein lies a lot of the keys to, our cognitive enhancements, our biomechanical enhancements. Those are the things that are actually on the table right now. And when I first got into it, it was through because I'm in the entertainment business, and I always think in terms of, okay, what's the next project? So I was like, I want to do a series about this stuff. And you wouldn't believe this, man. I have a hard time, accepting it, because you always read those stories. When I first got into the business, oh yeah, man, it took me 10 years to get this project done. I had this script for 15 years, and I'm like, oh God, I hope that never happens to me. And sure enough, I got into this project, transhumanism, in the early 90s. I read the book Radical Evolution by Joel Guru. That got me off. It was like, wow, this is transformative technology about who we are and what we can become. And it's right here, and it's happening before our eyes. But for the fact that you are not necessarily connected to the right people, with this stuff would just bypass you. And I thought to myself, what about all the people now? Because this stuff is so accessible to people with biology degrees, really, and accessible to people who code, and and people who are working with machines and and prosthetics, and it's become so much more accessible through a lot of what we already have on the table and what's coming up, and it's like an explosion. So for me, it's like, my goodness. So what do we want to do, right? That became the question. It's like what? It's like they have this term in the forecasting world called backcasting. It's a way of actually setting up future worlds. And so backcasting, as opposed to looking at the data and extrapolating forward, what backcasting does is you establish your end point, what you want to accomplish, and then you back out. What it would take to get there, step by step, backing it out. So I was like, wow, that's fantastic. So that's when I set up this series called The Next Iteration. The formal name is The Next Iteration of Human Existence. Obviously, it's not something you would, do.
Yeah, that's really intense. I mean, we were bickering before about which way when we should show it. But do you want me to just show the people? Like, you've mentioned it now. I mean, do they want to see the short intro?
I think so.
I think it's important. I think this is too good to miss. So, ladies and gentlemen, we now are going to the next iteration. We're going to quickly play
it's
that.
a trailer teaser.
Yeah. So we're gonna move over and we're gonna watch that quickly, ladies and gentlemen. So for those of you on the YouTube, you're gonna get that. Here we go.
This is the next iteration.
Let's stop it right there.
Stopping right there. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well done. So then you go on. So what did we just see?
So that was our protagonist, the husband and wife team. Quite radical in a lot of ways. It's such a deep piece, and in a lot of ways connected to myself, my activism, where I've come from. And I call it activism. It's really not. I mean, I guess it is, because it's been such a part of what I've been about. I've integrated so heavily into my vocation. As an entertainment attorney, I was working in environments where I had an opportunity to push forward a lot of my own ideas about change and progress and so on and so forth. So this piece features a married couple, and that was really the innovation of my co-producer, a woman I brought on board when I first put together the first proof of concept version of the film. I was going after some production money from one of these grant organizations, and just in the rough and tumble of being out here, relationships develop, and I had a few production relationships, people that I had chips with for work that I'd done with them. And it's kind of trade outs that you do here and there. Hey, I'm getting ready to do something. I need you to put some documents together for me. I can't pay you. So don't worry about it. What do you got? Come by. So I had a few of those chips. And so I was able to put together that proof of concept film. It was just very fortuitous the way it came together because the actors were really first class. People might even recognize certainly the male lead. He has done work on Daredevil, Empire. You've seen him around. But yeah, so that whole innovation of a married couple, African American couple, who are their backstory that they met or they came together as they were employed by the super advanced technological harbingers of tomorrow called DARPA. It's the defense. They got a weird name. It's Defense Agency Research Project Agency or some weird. Something just sounds redundant. Something you don't want to remember, basically. But DARPA, yeah, these guys were doing some really far out stuff, and they're way out in front on everything. Responsible for a lot of the stuff we see, advancements we see. Not so much in the genetic world, certainly in the marriage of artificial intelligence, robotics. Yeah, so two scientists who come out of that world, two African American scientists coming out of that world. There's a lot of questions. There's a great, implied backstory there, right? Because we know the racial history in America, and we know just how socially and professionally these worlds were set up, right? Not without easy access to African Americans. But we also know the story of the Hidden Figures, right? That's the name of the movie that did pretty well. It was about a African American woman who turns out that she was one of a lot of African Americans who were in the research aspect of military research, military engagement back in the pre-nuclear, pre-World War II, right up through World War II. Yeah, these people, it's like, wow, where did they come from, right? It's like this is the height of segregation. 40s, they grew up as segregated people. Their parents might have even been, indentured in some kind of way, right? And all of a sudden, they're at the forefront of the America's most forward-thinking, operations as it relates to NASA, as it relates to just military research, computer technology. So these are, they, as I said, they had their own implied backstories. Very fascinating. But as you saw and kind of got a sense of in the movie Hidden Figures, these people were essentially hidden. They weren't known in the African American community. Nobody knew about them, right? They lived a very sequestered life. They weren't role models. They weren't heroes. They weren't setting examples for people, right? Certainly there were small communities, people knew some, but those communities and, the story of the Manhattan Project gives you a sense of just how well the government can set these little communities up with very little interaction with the general population. So the point is that this activity is going on. You do not expect these people, right, to them forego that kind of privilege to make their knowledge available, right? That's not what, there's no experience with that. These people are, given the nature of racial relationships, they're glad to stay, privileged and hidden. Very few examples of people like saying, "Oh, I'm done with that. I'm coming out. I've got some ideas about how we can change the trajectory, right? The story of our relationships, of our racial relationships." Transhumanism fits right into that in a big way, right? It allows you.
Transhumanism is essentially a post-racial ideology. It transcends race. It transcends wealth. It transcends nationality. It transcends limiting factors that that have been constricting humanity, for thousands of years, and it's trying to reiterate that, which is funny because that's kind of what your project is called. Uh, but it's trying to reiterate that we can transcend and go beyond these antiquated factors, and that's really encouraging, because at the end of the day, whether you're whatever you are, whoever you are around the world, no one wants disease. I mean, no one, everyone wants a radically healthier lifespan, and no one wants unnecessary suffering. No one, people are interested in mind cognitive augmentation into technology. Everybody is equally scared of out of control AI. We all want the best we can for our emotional capacities. Everybody's interested in space colonization, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. To talk about it. We all want a respect for the elderly, and to eliminate the elderly class so that we can defeat aging, reverse it. I mean, let's make everybody young again. Let's improve our gadgets and widgets to enhance human life. And these things are within reach, and these things are as like transhuman, as the name suggests. They're not limited. It's not an America first policy or an Australian first policy or an Antarctica first policy. It's a human first policy that broadly transcends all of this. Just like the internet transcends these boundaries, and it's only these different states like China that shuts its internet off to the world, or North Korea that shuts its internet off, that makes it difficult. But for the most part, people are very happy to connect, whether you're in Australia or India or France or Antarctica or the United States. I mean, people don't generally put up walls. Yes, there might be bad actors, individual actors, a hacker here or there or whatever. But for every hacker, there's a supply side of security, coming out of the marketplace, and that's kind of what the USTP is. The USTP is a supply side for an ethical marketplace that people can rally, and they can talk, and they can discuss things, and they can talk about this notion of this what I'm calling now the Mariba moment. Now, I'm starting to introduce this word Mariba into the lexicon of the USTP, and hopefully it'll catch on. In Australia, we have Aboriginal population, and they near a town near where I grew up actually. There was a town called Mariba, okay, and Mariba in Australian Aboriginal means the meeting of many waters. And so what I've been saying is that's essentially what the USTP is. It's a place where all these waters are meeting up and coalescing and moving into a stream, and I think that's it's a Mariba moment, and we have to take advantage of this at this current time. I like this fact that you're using your medium, and let's talk about the campaign. Did you line up with someone like Rachel Haywire, who was a cultural candidate? She was very big in culture. She did very good memes. She had hats. She was talking about sort of psychic empires of transhumanism. Interesting stuff. Did you like Rachel Haywire, or did you go for somebody else?
Well, I thought the quality of the discussion was interesting. I watched a couple of the debates between all those candidates. We had, I think, in the beginning, we had, I think, a very manageable number. Then all of a sudden, we had a bunch of other ones. So, there's a lot of growing pain going on in the party. So, my thing is, I have actual electoral experience working with the corporate parties and, running campaigns and Wasn't expecting that kind of organization or continuity, but I thought for what we were trying to get done, it put a lot of the, sort of the ideas. For every crazy idea, there's, you look back and there's this little, there's all these good things going on. There's all these little things going on that are pushing it forward. That's kind of what the next iteration is about too. It's about all these little, because all the things you said, yeah, it's all great. That's where we would like to go. In fact, my protagonists in this series, they belong to a little cabal of people, international biohackers and activists who really believe in eventually getting there. But naturally, as people, we gotta get out of our own way, and that's what the series is about. That's where the drama is at, right? It's getting out of our own way. We have governments who don't feel the same way. We have people who don't feel the same way. People who feel more threatened by the idea of the kind of equality that we could bring about of outcomes. The notion that you could be cognitively enhanced so that you can that I think it was the accomplishment. Well, not so much the accomplishment level, but certainly put it this way, I guess the standardized level of intelligence and how we integrate people into the civic infrastructure becomes, too mechanized, right? People like discretion in there. So, and so those are the things that are going to have to ultimately be worked out, because this stuff is not going to just be dropped into the body politic. A lot of this technology, particularly you think about CRISPR, you think about what we know about, the I guess the cranium, the brain, and how to manipulate the different regions of the brain, to elicit different reactions. That stuff is not going to be just dropped into the population. Think about somebody who has perfected those abilities with genetics, particularly, right? Think about the advantages that are inherent in something like that, right? Somebody who's got a photographic memory now, that we know is something that just happens. So I think there's a lot of that I saw in the range of people that were talking in our campaign. As that crowd of candidates grew, it was like, whoa, like, my God. Rachel actually, put it this way, I didn't realize, well, I did realize, but because then we've got everything from people who are libertarians, and I guess, what does James Hughes call them? He calls them, I guess, some liberal transhumanist. He's got a whole classification system he's worked out. But yeah, we've got everything from very liberal to some right-wing people. And I thought, and the right-wing people, as we were going through our campaign, we get information about this guy Epstein being involved, and what they're up to, and then we're listening to some of these right-wingers, and all of a sudden now, all the fears about transhumanism are front and center. I thought that was very interesting, because we need to have those discussions, right? Because I'm gung-ho about transhumanism because of the possibilities of, like I say, changing the trajectories. But I know for a fact, I'm not naive to think that this stuff is going to be introduced democratically, whatever that means, right? America is an oligarch, a racial oligarch. So guess what? We're not that, there's some skepticism about how this stuff's going to roll out. So I thought some of that was exposed in the debates, which was good, because people have to be able to understand what we're talking about here. I don't think there is, and Ben Zion has to actually articulate it now. I don't think there is really a core set of beliefs that you could boil down to, say, 3 talking points about what what are we about. We're about human enhancement, or human accelerated human evolution. You know, what does that mean
Yeah,
for some people?
you're right. There's the practical goals which you're trying to articulate there, and then there's also the political goals. And this is the hard thing about mixing science and politics. It's why it's never really been done in the history of humankind before, because they're antithetical. It's black and white, right? These things are not really. It's oil on the water, right? It doesn't
When you
mix.
say political goals, what do you mean?
Well, the transhumanist-party, it's a mixture of science and politics, and usually politics is its own realm of craziness, and
Yeah.
science is its own hard, cold logic, right? And usually politics has usually got the upper hand because it's about power, and
Right.
and
You
and
could look
just
at a guy like Andrew Yang and say he's a transhumanist, right? I mean, you could, if you talk to Yang and you threw out some of the major aspects of, sort of the real
yeah,
plausible.
I think so, and we actually
he would probably be, right in line with us.
We actually did a bet here on this show. We put a whole bunch of them, and we said, hey, how long do you think? How many years until the word transhumanist pops up on the debate stage? And we got everything from 2024 to 2030, 34. So in around about somewhere between 6, 8, and 10 years, that word will pop up, and it's because of someone like an Andrew Yang, who a Democratic candidate who's pushed things like UBI, which is an acceptable, consumable product for the mainstream American populace, more so as a forward trajectory than what Bernie Sanders can offer, because it resonates with more people as opposed to this sort of class warfare agenda that he pushes. And I'm not saying that Bernie's idea is bad. I'm not saying that his message doesn't resonate. The guy almost beat Hillary. I mean, it's very, very powerful. But I think going forward, as automation picks up, it's going to be less about the rich hoarding everything and more about, hey, I just want some income. I don't care what happens.
Well, that's the problem with Bernie, is that it's not about the rich hoarding everything now. We're past that, and that's the problem with Bernie and the Democratic Party. They didn't understand that.
That's
way past.
I agree. Yeah,
we're way past that. Number one, this fixed economy that we have, where they print money out of thin air, and it's kind of abstract to talk about. Oh, they printed some money. So let's just work that through step by step, right? Okay, you print the money. Who'd you give it to? Right? Where'd it go? Who'd you give it to? Okay, now what did they do with it? Right? Who are these people who got this money? These institutions. Oh, you gave it to this bank, that bank. Well, who runs that? Who runs that bank? How many people in that bank got money? What did they do with that money? Right? These are the questions that we
and
can't.
that's the Ron
we
Paul.
Can't get to.
That's that Ron Paul. That's if you want that, you got to go to Ron Paul. I mean, that's all he talks about is like that other function, right? But the inequality in America.
It's a reality.
Yeah.
And because let me give you an example. That money, that 0% money that these feds are giving out to these big banks, and then they give to the hedge funds, and they give to the big corporate clients, and guess what? Where it ends up? It ends up in the hands of some little investment vehicle, real estate trust vehicle in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, buying up a whole block of brownstones. That's where it ends up, right? Mm-hmm. Blowing away the local market in ways that are not natural to how things are evolving. Oh, that family moved, her kids got old, they moved on, they sold.
Corporate gentrification.
This is predatory gentrification. That's what it comes down to, and it's driven by free money for people who really have no relationship to anything.
I agree with that, and I think those two sides those two arguments, the one that you brought up about the Fed and 0% rates, and the fact that there's so much misallocation of resources and capital. And then the other side, which is the growing inequality, the Bernie argument, these two naturally end up in an Andrew Yang UBI transhumanist position over time.
UBI is a recognition that we are past the Rubicon on automation. And Yang, he has a very simple message. When his 15-second elevator pitch is simple, but he does, when you look at his website, he gets a little deeper, and he does recognize, and his speeches actually do recognize that it's way past, the automated teller, right? We're at what I call middle class mobility work. Lawyers, accounting, architecture, all of this stuff has been impacted. Those numbers have been decimated. My profession, as a transactional attorney, working in the entertainment business, when the internet came into being, it almost wiped us out for a couple of reasons. One, the monopoly on information that we had was done. Two, you didn't have to be a lawyer to write a contract. So while we did have industry knowledge, standards and practices, so did business managers, so did agents, so did the guy's mom who does all his laundry and stuff while he's on the road, And what they didn't have was the structure of the deals and the paper, and and once the internet came into being, boom, that stuff became available. So that knocked us out. And then, all the peer-to-peer stuff, the idea of cutting out the middle person, which we were. Let's face it, we're just middle people, right? Putting deals together, making relationships work, making sure, that kind of thing. So yeah, we took a really big hit. Not just entertainment attorneys, but managers. They took a big hit. So this ripple effect has happened, and those people didn't come back from that. A lot of those people never came back into the industry, had to take a short on income, moved out of the city, whatever, right? Things happen, but it certainly was a direct connection to this change in how we did business. So that's started. Now it's gotten even worse with research. You cannot out-research an algorithm. It's just not going to happen. It keeps up with all the latest from the courts, shepherdizing, all that stuff. That's done. Those guys at the big firms, they don't even hire as many people, those young attorneys that they used to bring in and do all that research and all that. They don't need them for that anymore. No. Document review. Can't beat an algorithm for document review. Scanning, those scanning machines. That's done. That stuff's been going on for a while now. And as quiet as it's kept. Been going on accounting. Oh, they've been pillaged, right? In the accounting world,
white collar exodus,
pillaged. Stock traders, yeah. So this thing is on. It's on, and so that UBI is in the direct, acknowledgement that this is way beyond the point of, is automation taking our jobs? Automation has eliminated things that we don't need to do anymore. That does it better than we do. We still have a lot of things that we're going to be doing and can be doing. The conversation hasn't started in earnest because they don't want to be honest. Let's just be clear. They don't want to be honest about it. It's scary. People will trip out. People will have a legitimate, referable excuse from some authority that they're getting screwed.
I feel like I'm not in America. But I feel like a lot of those attorneys and Wall Street traders and day traders and, all those guys who in the 90s and the 80s, they were stepping around the homeless guy on the street and thinking good of themselves, right? And now they're looking at that guy and thinking, I'm going to be there soon if this doesn't change. And they built up in their head, this 80s mantra of, I work hard and that's why I'm successful. And, but now it's all on its head. And that whole theory, that whole libertarian-esque idea of, this is why I'm being successful because of my own genius, it's falling away, and it's coming back to bite them. And now they're realizing that they are about to become that person. And and this is a white collar middle class, upper middle class event, and and that's why they're all grasping for. That's why everyone's on the edge every time the stock market does something, because they say, if the stock market goes any which way, I'm going to be on the street with that guy, and I've been making fun of him in my head for 30 years. I can't do that.
Yeah, that's how Trump got elected, because
Yeah,
that fear is like, whoa. These people, a lot of these people, particularly the guys I call the sort of the infrastructure people. The guys are part of the IBEW. That's a union here in the States. They represent all of the electricians, the plumbers, the carpenters, heavy machine operators, right? These are the guys that put it together, that build dams and build the equipment that builds dams, and builds the tools that builds the tools that build the tool. Those guys, they're the ones that are starting to feel like, it's coming for them too. A lot of those guys, and I guess it's like the car industry. You had the car people who were making the cars, then you had the people who were the accessories, right? The parts, right? There's a whole industry of parts people, and that's the same way with there's the same way with the big heavy infrastructure guys. There's all these corollaries and ancillary businesses that go along with them that are being impacted by automation and by algorithms, and things are just progressing. So they're feeling it, and nobody's acknowledging what they're feeling, because it's pretty tough. My mom worked in the Ford Motor plant in Mahwah, New Jersey, when I was back in the 70s. When they went down, the late 70s, they went down. I think that was a 5,000 person plant, and they went down, just gone. And I don't think anybody ever. I'm exaggerating, but most people didn't have a college degree. Most of them, basically barely got out of high school, but they were on the line. They served a good, useful function. They developed a little skill that was very specific, and they were paid very well in those conditions, right? Better than that you can get on the outside with that level of education, right? Of course, they got more training than anybody on the outside could give somebody either. Also, right? These organizations were able to train people in very substantial ways, and so they. But all that just went away very quickly too. It was like, literally, that stuff just kind of just peeled away. Like, they started talking about it, and then within 6 months, it's just like boom, 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 boom. The pieces just start to fall. And those families, those people, 35, 45, 40, I would say most people 40 and older never really got back in the workforce. That's a lot of people that just really just kind of had to stumble along for the rest of their lives, because.
And that's not just a gaggle of people. That's mums and dads and grandmas and granddads and people who.
That's mortgages.
Mortgages.
Colleges.
It's a whole interconnected web of hopes and dreams, as opposed to just 5,000 people who now get to go and sit around at home and watch Bernie and Frank or something. So that's the point.
So, right? Those people want to know, and those people want to know, you guys really know what's happening with this, and these politicians, because they're not talking about it specifically, right? They're not talking like, wow, think about it. My job could be gone. I'm 40 because of some automation, and because
that's
of
anxiety.
Doing business.
That's a whole building anxiety. What do you do about that? That's why the Democrats, through proxy, through Andrew Yang, have introduced the notion, because they're preparing for that to run on that issue in the future. They see that coming down the road. And the Republicans have gone the other way. They blame immigrants. They've gone build the wall. All this other stuff. They've gone the other way. An insular.
Well, campaign. You know why? You know why they're trying to build a wall? because they see the day when we're going to have to start handing money out, and we don't want this crowd, this line to be longer than it needs to be. They're trying to.
That's
like,
a good
okay,
point. Yeah,
it's even
like
happening. It's even happening amongst African Americans.
sure.
Yeah,
And
they got this like a group that's saying, "Oh, well, if they're going to give some money out, it should be African Americans who were here first versus people who came later." So people are seeing
it's a big
the
bill.
future. Yeah.
It's a big bill, and they deny climate change. All these groups or whatever, but by their own admission, I mean, one of the reasons you build a wall is because there's going to be a mass climate change crisis, refugee crisis, and they're going to hit a wall. They're not going to be allowed in. I mean, it's not going to impact negatively the United States so much, but it will impact huge parts of the other part of the world. And so, if you handed out money, like you said.
We got a lot of low-lying areas. I know I have some people down in this southeast United States, above Florida and down into Florida, like in the Carolinas, Norfolk region. Those places are, I think some of those areas are as low-lying as it gets over in places like New Orleans. It floods there constantly. So, yeah, they got, we got this flooding thing coming from climate change. It's going to impact a lot more people than folks are really letting on right now, because those areas. I know there's a town down in Norfolk, Virginia. There, I mean, half of that town on a hard rain day, half of that town is shut down.
Mm.
Yeah, half of that town is shut down, and that's just because of the rising water. The rain comes, and then the water, because they're so low, the sea level comes up. So yeah, half of that town will get shut down because of the water. So
you're totally right, and I mean, this is why people in general. I mean, I'm here in Melbourne, Australia. I mean, I'm looking at the Transhumanist-Party. For solutions and for answers, and because they can provide a path out of some of these problems. I mean, they're not the overall answer. I mean, nothing is. But these guys are on the money with talking about solutions to 21st century problems, and we're not in the 20th century anymore. In 5 years or so, it's going to be 2025. I mean, that's a quarter of the way through the damn century already. I mean, we've got to start thinking 21st century problems. It's almost
right.
It's almost 2020. I mean, I feel like a lot of the older generation and some even the younger generation, not the younger so much, but they're still thinking like it's 1990s or 1970s.
Well, yeah, particularly when you look at some of the younger kids and what they're preparing themselves for in terms of college studies, what they're studying, jobs they're thinking about and preparing themselves for. Like I tell my kids, I say, if you're preparing for jobs, some of these jobs that are here now, you're going to be sadly mistaken, because they're not going to be there in the same forms, if at all. Certainly not the same numbers available. You're going to have to really get ahead of the curve, because it's moving very quickly. And because there's stuff that's going on technology-wise that is just brewing now, that in 5 years, it's going to be more mature, and it's going to be more integrated into our business processes. That's going to have another impact.
I had Brett Nally on. And he's just about to become a father, and we were discussing some parenting tips for the 21st century. Not that I have any advice to offer, but essentially what I said, and he said this was an okay idea, is you've got to teach them how to think, not what to think. And if you can teach them how to think, they can maybe navigate. It'll be better equipped. They'll be better equipped to navigate the challenges of the future, because the challenges of the future are going to be, changing, and you have to be, you have to be able to adapt, as opposed to in the 1940s, where you studied to be an electrical engineer, and you could be an electrical engineer until the day you died, or you could work for a corporation, McDonald's or Walmart or something, and you could work there until the day you died, and everything would be okay. That's not. That's an old system. You're not going to be able to live in these structures anymore, unless unless you want to take that
Electrical
risk.
engineers, they're okay though. The electrical engineers are still okay though.
And I think the electrical engineers will be okay until 21 million. I mean, electricity isn't going away.
No. These guys, they have skills that are going to be transferable and going to be integral to this new digital world that we live in. They've got those skills. It's just a matter of adapting. I think the bigger challenge.
Electrical engineer was a bad example. Sorry.
Yeah. But we get the point. But it's good to point out exactly what's at risk too. You know. But our kids, what I do, I like to do with my kids, and particularly even with this series, which is one of the reasons I worked on it. I'm still working on it. Is because it is exposing the regular people, putting it in a format so the regular people can get a look at what we're talking about, what the implications are of some of this technology, right? Just what it's going to look like. So with film and television, we have the opportunity to actually dramatize those environments, create those scenarios. Because I think, that conversation, it needs to be had. Like you say, I think you're right. That was a good point you made about the Democratic Party allowing, Yang being encouraged by a lot of folks who understand what's coming up, but couldn't bring themselves to put it in the too corporate context because that's what they do. They hold the line, right? But they know that conversation has to happen. So Yang has been bringing it up slowly. Think about it too, because while he didn't get a lot of he didn't get the kind of popular recognition that Yang has, but Zoltan, actually started the conversation more specifically. He was on Joe Rogan. So a lot of people got a sense of like, whoa, what's going on in this? And it's so funny because in the next iteration of the series, our thing is we pushed it forward like 30 years. So we're like 54. And one of our principal characters is now a avowed transhumanist who has a good chance of being the head of a state now for governor or something like that, So the point is we've gotten to the point now where this conversation is front and center now. This is an avowed transhumanist. He's about to win the governorship of a major state. And those kind of conversations, you can look back and say, and it's going to trace when they began. And this is, Zoltan's got to be given some credit for getting out there, putting those issues on the table. And now I think the transhumanist party can continue that job of educating the public. And the party is kind of a vehicle to do that. But I think the more we can make it part of the regular conversation, the more we can integrate these ideas about what's coming, what's out there, and then how it's going to impact, how it's coming at us. I think that's the role we can. That's a useful role we can play in this political landscape, because let's face it, our parties, our ideas. There's nothing new about where we're coming out, what we're going to do with the economy. There's a few things you can do. First, you can stop cheating of these economies. It's like, come on, let's stop that first, right? Quantitative easing, right? Come on, right? Credit default swap. Give me a break. What is it's like? Come on. So, but in terms of what we know, right? What we know about ourselves, what we think we can do with that knowledge, right? Think about it. We're thinking about being able to more effectively fight things like cancer. We're thinking about being able to regenerate growth in organs, creating organs. That's the kind of stuff that we should be talking about, right? This is the kind of stuff that's really human centric. Living longer because of the things that we're able to do now in terms of cutting back on people dying because they couldn't find right match for a heart or for some organ that's hard to get. Those are the kinds of things that are going to be. That's the transhumanism that I think that's going to resonate with the public, right?
Yeah.
And even the cognitive stuff, because people take Ritalin and Adderall and modafinil, all that stuff to get a cognitive edge, and it works to a degree, because it's been proven it works. But think about what we have on tap genetically.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, and I'm personally very excited for this sort of supermarket of organs idea. You just go log on, and you get your heart delivered by drone. I mean, I can't wait. I mean, I'm in. I'm ready. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. You brought up so many good points. And it's just a lot to go through. But yeah, in general, the Transhumanist-Party, yeah, founded by Zoltan to begin this science and politics conversation. And I keep reiterating this because, again, you don't really see science and politics existing in the same world. They are almost antithetical, and it's hard to put them in the same room. But I think transhumanists are clever people. I think that with the right mix of very clever people, we can make it work, and we have to make it work in order to survive in the 21st century. And I like this idea of your character in 30 years, rising up to a position of governor, which means by default that if he's getting up there, in the lower echelons of local governments all over the place, there must be transhumanists all over the place. And you know what, the stigma, the whatever people think about transhumanists now, they'll be running to them for solutions soon enough. I'm not really worried about it. I'm not worried about what people think, because they just don't know that they absolutely adore these ideas right now, and they'll come back. They'll be here soon enough, and they won't really have a choice anyway. I mean, they'll say why are the Republican or Democrat, or here in Australia, Labor or Liberal, why are these old established duopoly parties always just bringing up wedge issues when I can clearly see that jobs have been eviscerated and that technology has advanced so far and that there's so many other problems, and the old guard is only ever bringing up these. The wall, for example, was one of these wedge issues, but they do bring up these just wedge issues, and they're distractions, and I think the population will eventually get sick of it.
Conversation, what's going to happen is people are going to say, why am I arguing about this with this idiot about getting an operation, some antiquated operation to get a knee replaced, when I know that I can get some regenerative therapies, stem cells, the more potent ones that you can't get in the States right now, and that these therapies are absolutely changing the game.
Yeah,
that's what people.
Brett and Ellie, I'd love to.
People are going to be pissed about. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. Are you telling me? Are you literally telling me that I'm getting a hip replacement that's antiquated when I can have stem cells and be better and walking like I'm regular again because they've regenerated my ligaments and bone marrow and all that? That's what's going to get people excited and pissed when they find out that the corporatocracy has been holding back.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Brett Nally, I'd love to introduce you to Brett Nally. He's really, really cool. But he actually did this. He went to another country. I can't remember which one it was right now off my head. But he went to another country and he got a whole bunch of stem cell therapy. And it's just incredible. But he said, it's also in the United States. She's just it's like, what's up with the point? I don't understand. I mean, what's the point? Land of the brave, home of the free, or whatever it is. I mean, it doesn't, and yet you're not allowed to allowed to even engage in these conversations. I mean, yeah, real brave, America.
This is what's gonna. I'm telling you, we have an opportunity to be relevant in ways that are only going to be, the opportunities are only going to be there for a minute. The windows only going to be there for a very quick, like you say. Andrew Yang is the mainstream saying, maybe it's about time we should acknowledge that we basically screwed ourselves with employment, because we forgot that we have 8-9 billion people to do something with. They can't just be sitting around while automation does everything for them. They've got to be busy. They got to be occupied. So we have to figure that out, and we've moved very fast. In fact, ways probably faster than we even intended to move, right? Because it's a lot of unintended consequences, right? CRISPR they're just arguing about, introducing CRISPR and arguing about who had the patent because who introduced it first. That was last year. And now we're talking about, we've got people, we have to ban the creation of new organisms. This thing is moving fast. This thing is moving fast.
Human crime it's nuts. It's nuts. Well, anyway, look, it's fascinating. So, did you want to let's talk about one little more? So the U.S. Transhumanist-Party. So, you obviously knew the candidates, right? So the candidate field was originally it was Charles Holzhopper with his 222. It was Rachel Haywire, the cultural candidate, and it was Ben Zion, and then exploded out to Jonathan Chakey, who was the libertarian anarcho-capitalist, Marlin, who was running as an AI, Kimberly Forsyth, who's working with the Estonian government, and she was big on a future with no money, a post-monetary economy. We had Matt Taylor, who was a public health policy guru. We had so many people. John Kurtz, who's an Asian Indiana Jones. He went up in a MiG, and he's a brilliant mind on a whole bunch of issues. And Christian T. Harris, who is a media mogul in his own right in the alternate media space. So that's a wide variety. What did you think of that field overall at the end?
I think that's different. Great. I think we have a nice pool of people from which to draw a cogent, persuasive presentation of what transhumanism is, what it's about, why it's important to everybody. We're not. This is not a fringe. Well, we're a fringe party, but it's not a fringe human activity. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not fringe.
No.
We just talked about it. It's not fringe. This is wake up. This is happening.
This is existential.
So we need to bring that message out there. And I think all those people you mentioned all had really good ideas and interesting ways of approaching things. And Ben Zion, if he does the party and he does a real service, he will be able to bring it all together, put it together in a cogent platform, presentation to the public about just, the impact and what we can look forward to and why, what we're talking about and why we're out here.
And what would you like to see? What sort of innovations would you like to see from the party now? I mean, Detonation, hopefully you go and watch some Detonation. That's a little bit of an innovation. What other innovations would you like to see? Them on the speaking circuit, interactions with the public?
Well, I think I'd like to see you guys expand the Detonation. I think probably get a name that will immediately jump out at people who are interested in transhumanist ideas, because Detonation kind of throws you off.
Yeah.
For transhumanism, but I think the smart thing to do, because you can build so many things around it, is that we build Detonation as a portal, as a broadcast portal. We build it out. We start covering actual transhumanist events, actual transhumanist talks. We interview people who are in these talks, people who come to these talks. We talk about why they're there. We talk about things that they're doing. We go out. We make news. When the news is being made, we need to cover it. We need to bring it to people, and I think that's a good use of the portal. It's a good use of volunteer staff people of the enthusiasts that we have out there. It's a good way to get them engaged. So yeah, I think that would be a big accomplishment. It's not a small undertaking, but that would be something worthwhile for the whole group to get involved in, because everybody's a reporter in some way or another. Everybody's participating in these events.
They've all got a mobile phone that can record stuff.
Isn't that beautiful? We don't even have to send out cameras anymore.
No,
you don't have to equip people, and they can go live right there. It's live broadcast. And then we just edit it and just send it to you, edit it, boom. We put together a broadcast that goes out once a day or whatever. But yeah, some stuff like that I'll be glad to work on.
Fantastic.
That kind of stuff.
And this TAF's initiative too. I mean, we could cover things like that. They're having their conference right there in Rwanda as we speak, I think. So we'd like to.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. That's not happening right now. I don't. It's a good. It's interesting. It's the second time. It's so crazy because when you talk about transhumanism and in the next iteration, the whole struggle is that we're trying to liberate the technologies from the corporatocracy's domination. They're trying to keep it to themselves. Governments and now trying to keep it to themselves. So we're trying to liberate it, right? And in that paradigm, Africa, the continent is, it's just the South. It's like I said, 20% of the roads are paved. So they're behind technologically. So to be interested in transhumanism, which is the next step up from industrialization, is just sort of, it's a big leap. So, but so ironically, this is the second guy that I've come across, and they don't know each other, that has been doing something related to transhumanism in Nigeria, in Africa. He wants to do he's Nigerian and wants to do it in Rwanda. But there was some Nigerians who did a conference, and they brought, I think it was either Aubrey or one of the other big luminaries they brought down to talk. But yeah, there's some individuals there who are onto it, right? But they don't have the infrastructure for the conversation to be.
I think it's like I think they can jump the dirty industrialization period that both China and the United States have gone through. I think not totally. You do need paved roads and stuff, but with like Elon Musk's Starlink, for example, I mean, all of a sudden they will have internet infrastructure that cost hundreds of billions of dollars for China and the United States to build up, and suddenly they'll have that infrastructure almost virtually for free. I mean, they can make huge leaps off the backs of advanced industrial economies or post-industrial economies, in this notion of accelerating returns, right? So the African continent, it doesn't have to, or India is another one. It doesn't have to. They don't have to. Although India is a little bit different, but they don't have to go through this whole dirty industrialization process where you build big factories for no. They can just go straight to the internet, straight to transhumanism, straight to the ideas platform, and let their countries sort out the supply demand issues of sanitation and food and some other things, administration or whatever. But like as you said, like administration, legal, I mean, it's all being outsourced anyways. They might as a whole continent just jump straight to post-industrial economy in certain arenas, not in all the arenas.
But yeah, remember a lot of what is valuable in Africa right now is a big part of the industrial world we live in, minerals.
Sure.
Right. That's a big part of what they're doing. So that's still a big part of going forward. There's some leaps that can happen. No doubt there's some leaps that can happen. I think there's some great things can happen. I think the kind of Chinese type of manufacturing competitiveness, I think that can happen in Africa. That's part of what this series is about too. Is like, that's what our guys are, we're this whole leveling the social political playing field through the distribution of advanced human enhancement technologies. Is about, because ultimately it's about how China made the transition from as Deng Xiaoping said, from humiliation to redemption was through its people. There was no magic formula, it was through people.
A lot of hard work.
People made the changes, right? Through their native intelligence. So so transhumanism with the promise or threat, depending on how you're looking at it, of being able to jumpstart, and create and actually, tap into intelligence, right? And augmentation, enhancing cognitive ability, spatial recognition, pattern recognition, memory, All that. That's and then you put people in environments and you see what happens with that. That's the formula, right? That's the formula. China's been doing that. They did that with just basically natural selection. They put these pools of smart people together. They looked at their genes. They looked at what they were doing, and they just kept mingling and mixing and mingling and mixing. It's absolutely what is on what transhumanism I think promises to, as you say, to everybody. It's a leveler in that way. So I'm glad that they're involved. I'm glad that they're always thinking about trying to get things off. But I don't know what's going to happen here. I think he says he wants to postpone it till next year. That's what I'm hearing. So yeah, because it was supposed to happen Monday. It's supposed to start Monday, but
well, I
I'm
know
not sure what
Tom Ross just flew out there, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, look, Mike.
Silly.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
He just flew out there this morning. I just saw her on the train. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. I don't know.
Yes, I was just talking to him too. He didn't tell. Yeah.
Yeah.
He flew to Rwanda or Nigeria.
I can check. He's on his status update there, on his thing. But yeah, cool. Tom Ross, Mr. Tom Ross, very cool dude. Tom Ross, AI genius. Yeah, he says Tom Ross was traveling to Kalagi, Rwanda from Denver International Airport 7 hours ago.
Wow.
So it might still be on.
So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. I'm looking forward to it.
I'll try and get some footage. I'll try and put it up here on Detonation. But anyway,
yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Yeah, and that's the type of integration that I want to do here at Detonation, and things like Radfest and we'll track Mr. Holsop working in collaboration with Project 222. Fantastic, a fantastic initiative. All about expanding the Maslow's hierarchy of needs to the global community. Ensuring that people have food, shelter, and water. And TAFs, transdisciplinary Agora for the future discussions. Great initiative, but they're publishing papers on transhumanism and a whole bunch of awesome things. So. Yeah, and I thank you very much for your suggestions about Detonation and expanding a transhumanist channel. I agree with you. The imagine a world without debt is no good. But yeah, I'll try and brainstorm some new logos as well, and that'll be really cool. And thank you very much. But your voice is very loud on that because you're in the you've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of film and entertainment groups and think tanks and films and all that. So I'm listening. I'm listening.
Yes, perfect, man. Anything I can do, certainly keep me in mind.
All right, thank you very much. That's
Hey, thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, no problem. You come back anytime you want if you've got any updates or anything to tell us, and send us any footage or anything you want. And good luck with your the next iteration film project. It sounds amazing. That's Marlin Adams, entertainment attorney from New York, right?
New York.
New York. I love it. I want to come to New York one day, see the big towers and all that good stuff.
Certainly, let me know when you get here.
All right,
we'll be waiting for you.
We'll do. All right, that's Marlin Adams. All more coming to you all this week. Detonation.